So I'm super excited. I brought the book. I don't know if you guys have the book, but it's super exciting to be here with each of you. I know I've talked with each of you in different ways, and I've been able to connect with you. And I just can't tell you how much it means to me that you're here. Yay, James, you have it. And Fatima, oh my gosh, hello. Just so you guys know, Fatima's here and she's from Morocco. So shout out to Fatima. But I'm super excited. These next probably 60 minutes, it might go a little bit longer. We never quite know, but I want to be mindful of everyone's time on here. I'm going to go into just the virtual book talk. And when I've done this for my third book, An Uncompromised Life, that came out June 8th of last year. And this was my first ever book, but it's now through my publisher, Morgan James. I wanted to also do a virtual book talk because I love actually getting to know each of you. I love getting to know the intoxicators, those of us who are lovers, those of us who really believe in transforming this world with love in each of our respective industries. When I wrote this book back in 2017, I had no idea that I would become an author of so many books, or my fourth book, or my PhD, and everything. But I wanted to say one thing before we started, because I think it's very profound. And it really gave me such a clarity of why I guess just we follow that nudge, that's something that's inside of us telling to be more, to love more, to create more. And so I was in my master's in Arizona State University studying global technology and development. And I wrote my second book, which is called The Future for Rohingyas Education, which is about a group of refugees that are from Myanmar, but are in Bangladesh. And it's a big issue. So, because we're not really sure what to do with them. And a lot of governments and politics are involved, basically. So I created a framework of how do we create a technology-based education system? How do we create curriculums to help people be able to get visas or move them in a direction to actually have a humane life, And I was in my master's and something profound was shared with me. And they said that in the international court system, or when you're looking at some of these things, and I'm a proponent of Facebook, so don't get me wrong, but this is just an example, that when you look at that and someone defaults on a trade agreement, let's say, or some corporation goes into a less developed nation or a less developed country, and there's, I guess, a misalignment, or let's say there's something that's kind of done wrong by the larger force at play. The international court system steps in, right? But the core of what it comes down to still is, even if you have the system, is what country has the largest military. And this spoke to me so deeply because whoever has the largest military still has the most power in whatever international system goes wrong. And when I wrote this book and when I talk about intoxicating the world with love, the largest peaceful army of love, I never in my wildest dreams, when I wrote that sentence, would have found out that a few years later, this piece of information about whoever has the strongest military would win in an international relations type of more economic or social issue. And I thought, wow, like I wrote that book already knowing the future would be on frequency. I wrote this book already knowing that there was more to do with love and peace and impact. And so I just want to say to each of you, like I have these little stickers. You can always message me your address and I'll get it mailed to you, but it's a little sticker you can put on your laptop or anything. But I say it's like our little badges of those of us who are really creating more freedom in the world, more impact, and really want what's best for the whole. And that's a passion of ours to look at. So with that, I'll get started, but I want this to be super interactive. So the chat box, it should be to the right. If there's anything I ask or say during it, make sure to say, oh my God, I loved that, or this really resonated, or whatever that it is. I like this to be engaging. And the more that you are engaging and you offer input while I'm speaking, the more that I give, more than I even knew or what I had planned to do. So I'm just super excited to be here. And I'm just super proud of each of you and this movement. And I could have never imagined a few years ago what it has become today, with empowering entrepreneurs, with empowering people to get creative, even in corporate settings, and empowering people to just rise up in their own movement of whatever that is, of knowing that what you believe in, what you're here to represent is enough. And that enoughness can absolutely touch the lives of someone like the starfish, of making someone feel loved. And when someone feels loved and you were part of that process, I really do believe we heal the planet and fulfill our goal as beings existing here in this human experience. So I love that, Brian, that you have it on your mirror for a daily reminder. So with that, anyway, I'd love for you guys just to say in the comments that you're ready, you're excited. I'm ready for the talk. I'm ready to live my truth. I'm ready to be here. I'm ready for love. Just anything in the comments. I'd love for you guys just to type it in. so we can get started. Oh, I love that, James. I have a sticker on my laptop, but just typing it in, like, I am love. I am here to intoxicate. I am here to live my truth, whatever that it is. But really just writing it and claiming it, participating. Love that, Tom. Yes, get participating from Tom in the comments is everything right now. I'm ready for my truth, to love, create more. I love that. I am here. Wow, Matthew, I felt that. That was actually very powerful. I am here, like a full presence. That's really powerful. I am ready. Okay, yay. Okay, so we're super excited. And I first, obviously in my book, I dedicate it to this, but I also want to dedicate it to this in the beginning of the talk. But this talk, this experience, this whole movement is to all of those out there who live with our hearts. This is our time and this is our movement. And so it means the world to me that you've chosen to say yes and that you've chosen to be here. And so there's never a dollar amount, right? A return on the investment that will ever equivalent what it means to live your truth. There won't be that price ticker when you have cancer, which is a lot of what inspired this book, children that I've seen die, older people that I've seen die. There will never be that sticker of what it means to be at the end of your life, knowing you lived a life true to you. You lived a life that you gave every ounce of your heart and your soul to people, to everything. There's not, I mean, a billion or a trillion, whatever, but there's a lifetime of memories that you get carried with and that people will carry on for you when you're no longer here. And I truly believe that's the purpose of living your truth, is to have those very deep moments throughout a lifetime that are enough deep moments that you will always be here because you live inside of others. You've given that piece of you so deeply that it's alive and will be alive. And so with that, that's what I believe. That's why I'm excited. And I just honor you. And so we're going to get into it. So I'm going to go through each of the steps, and each of the steps, I'm just going to go into a little bit of obviously the story if you've read the book, but a little bit more of the story, give you a little bit more background and just how to really move through and experience these 5 steps. So as you know, or if you don't know, I'll say, but an intoxicator, I came up with this word, or it came to me, is someone who looks within to remove the toxic to become what is left, their truth. And so I just want you to know that that part of looking within is the hardest step. And I know that each of us, where we've evolved to in our state of being, in our state of optimizing, wherever we're existing, we're not only looking within just ourselves, we're also looking within humanity. And we also ask very deep questions about how to transform a high level humanity question. And these are social issues, these could be economic issues, these could just be connection relating issues. And that process of beginning to look in is challenging because it can cause a lot of pain as we have to begin to be honest about our toxic habits and also the habits that we're carrying of others so that we can become the truth. And that journey of becoming the truth isn't just linear. It's not like, hey, I've arrived. It's this constant place of going, you know what, let me realize this is where I want to go. This is what I believe in. And it's an active present participation of you with everything. And that requires work, that requires integrity. It requires so much. It requires giving parts of yourself that I just want to honor you that no one will ever see physically. But I do believe the universe, cosmos, God, source, whatever you want to call it, is always watching and is always tagging those things to be part of what's carrying the light instead of the weight of this world dragging it down. And so that's how the word, I mean, what I mean by it, what it comes is I just want you to know that you are someone who is an alchemist. You are someone who constantly is burning energy, transforming people. And that when people are in the presence of you, you have this ability, or you would not be here, where you take on the field, an energetic field of other people, an emotional field, whatever it is, and you are constantly purifying it. So that's why people like to be around you, whatever industry, and people like to be around you. They enjoy being around you. They have fun around you. It's because you're constantly purifying the fields of other people just by being in your presence. This is something I didn't understand for a long time. And I became, what's it called? Like extreme fatigue. I would have like anxiety. I would have all these weird things that would happen to me that it wasn't actually mine. It was me carrying other people's things. And so when you walk this journey, I want you to know you are not alone. We are here together as, I would say, like a lover's family in a nice way, not in like a weird way, but we're here to support each other and know that everything you're doing is not just your job to carry. It's all of us here doing this work, and we are just a community all over the world. And so with that, step one that I want to go into, what I write about in this book, which is so powerful, is becoming open. And it's funny because more and more I run into people, like I just have a real estate agent that I'm using for a house I'm looking at, and they talked about something. I was like, you have to be open, you have to be willing. And it kept coming back. And all these people that I meet, I'm like, you're open, you're becoming open. And I think it's so important, wherever you are in your journey, whatever you're a leader of, whatever you're an activator of, whatever you're a guide of, is that you're constantly in the space of allowing yourself to become open and guiding others to have a trust and a safety to become open in the presence of you. And so how this first came to me, and I want to share that, is that this actually has happened this week too, if you did see my social media posts, but my first moment of how this happened, right, is I just had thyroid cancer, and I just had my first surgery out of 2. And a guy in my class told me to shut up because I was ugly, because of the scar on my neck. And I commented right back, and I was like, you shut up, or you whatever. And I just said, like, snapped back really quick. And the teacher, I'll never forget, she was a science teacher. And she said, stop being so sensitive, Colleen. And it was like this whole whirlwind of, she had a daughter. I'm like, if a guy just calls your daughter ugly, like I said this, I was like, you would not be saying that. And it was this, I don't know how to describe it besides this experience that was just so jaded in my mind. And I didn't know anything about like gender. I don't even know if that's a gender issue. I don't even know how I would claim it as that. Like, I just didn't know about like favoritism or how emotional cues like favor one person over the other. Like, I just did not get this like bias of connection, I guess, in a way. And I remember I was in every class with him because I was in an international baccalaureate class. I mean, you had every 6 hours together for 2 years. So it's like, you never got a break. Like, it was not like it was like 1 hour and then the next hour you went to another class. It was the same students in every class, every day of the week. And I would just get so angry. Like, I'd be like, ugh, and I would like, so frustrated. And I carried this with me. And what I want to share here, and I think it's really important in this talk, is that whatever emotion you carry, right, within you, whether it's good, it's frustration, it's happiness, it's negativity, the moment someone connects with you over that, sadness, anger, beauty, a moment of coffee, whatever it is, like whatever that moment of connection is, you're still connecting. It's a subconscious connection. And so during this experience we all just went through the past 2 years, and not being political, I'm just saying, like, whatever, we've all experienced things on this realm from what's happened. If you're connecting over anger, over disagreement, or over anything, instead of just let's all be well and be happy and let's align to that state of being, anything besides something in that way or if you're actually in a medical field and you're sharing something to help diagnose something, and any place like that, you're not connecting on the truth of what we all want, which is to be well, to be happy, and to feel love. And I just really want to take that moment after everything that's occurred and what will still occur in your life, is just become open to the mindset that you have the opportunity to connect on grace. You have the opportunity to connect on beauty. You have the opportunity to connect on just incredibleness. But that's only when you go first, the universe is going to follow. There is no that other people are going to come to you and then you're going to lash out back to them. It's okay. Someone's lashing out at me. Someone's doing this to me. Let me respond with grace. Let me respond with becoming open and loving and vulnerable. Let me do that and be the leader of this conversation to shift their energy. I go first and the universe follows. Just like any military, like you go first in a leader position and then the rest of the team will follow. So you have ranking. Here it's an energetic and emotional ranking. You are highly emotionally intelligent being, highly connected to something greater than yourself. And so you go first and you have a whole support system behind you that's going to guide you for everything else to realign. And the thing I want to share in this becoming open, which I didn't say in this first part, but the thing I found so profound about this when this happened is I remember I was in college 3 years later and I found out on Facebook that the same boy who called me ugly had committed suicide. I was shocked, but I wasn't. And I saw in a flash, like I could take myself back to, he was one row here, second computer screen. I was on the last row, third computer screen. He turned around to yell at me. Like I literally, when I saw this, I saw the whole flashback of the experience happen. And then I saw like the vision of him committing suicide. And I thought, wow, how crazy that one comment, one angry connection that I held with me for years all ends by him committing suicide. I never knew the guy, never talked to him after high school, never anything. But the point of becoming open is to see that nothing negative is about you. You are the one to be open to the source of greatness. You are the one to be open to the source of beauty. You are the one to be open to that. And then it opens other people. I don't say it like this in my first book, but I want to share it here. When you think about this, of a flower, right? A flower, normally when you buy flowers, you want the flowers to be closed like this, right? Because you want the flower petals to break to become open. And so I'm often learned that in living a life with love, you have to break in order to open. And sometimes that breaking may appear painful, but it doesn't have to. You can find beauty in the breaking. You can find beauty in the opening. And so that's a really powerful metaphor that has really supported me in this journey to stay, not only become open, but stay open. And that's a big, big thing. It's easy to be open for a moment, but can you stay open? Can you stay open when it's hard and you want to close and you want to run away and you don't want to be present with your dreams or your goals or whatever that it is when someone's being annoying? Can you stay open in that space? And so I hope that makes sense. So let me just see if there's some comments here. I love your positive energy. Thank you. I'm ready to intoxicate, become open, respond rather than react. Yep. How do you compartmentalize all the emotions when you open and connect? It's a really great question. So I don't sit there when you're feeling an emotion, right? I'm not sitting there like, I feel happy, right? I'm just in the bliss of happiness. I'm just in the bliss. Like, that's why I loved what Matthew said here. What'd you say? I am here. And I felt that with Matthew. Like, it wasn't like you were just saying like, he was basically like, I'm present. I'm fully here in the presence. And I felt it. Right. And so compartmentalizing would be more like, okay, let me take that time to reflect on my life or reflect on my day, which they say one of the things that makes some of the greatest leaders is those who take time to self-reflect. When I'm self-reflecting on something, I'm not in it, I will go, okay, what was that energy? How did I react there? Was I upset? What could have been changed? Or if I am in a really deep, like some of my clients that are here, but if I'm with people who I work with and we're in this, that's when you have like an opportunity, or even if I'm with one of my mentors or people I'm working with, you can be more in that space of let me become the observer and have dialogue around that. But if you're the leader in the being open for the other people, that's not the time, right? That wouldn't be the space. That's for you to be the one. But in that space of self-reflection, that's when I would go back and go, okay, how did that transition? How did that go? Where's the improvement or expansion? But when you're in it, the point is just to be fully there in the openness of what's alive and what's present. Like the flower, like to be, if a bee comes or a fly comes or whatever comes, like it's just to be in that openness. And then at the later parts, that's the art of it. The art is, okay, I practiced, I was present. Now the art is to the reflective. Okay, now it can be available and open for the art again. Okay, now let's do it as this process. And that's when the lifestyle becomes, and that's the same thing with research design, right? Okay, this research design went really well. The questions weren't so great. Let's reflect on that. Same with feelings, but the feeling is more of a full body experience instead of you're trying to get to a desired result, because you can't do that with love. The great question though. Self-esteem should be high and natural. Yes. Stay open. Yes. And Fatima, everyone I just always blog on, I shouldn't say, I always brag on Fatima. She has a beautiful wellness blog. It's amazing. I should share with everyone, but she's just a rock star. I'm sure all of you are too, but I just love her blog. And so anyway, that's become open. And I love these questions. So if you have questions like that, feel free to get in and I'll pause that. So the next part in this 5-step process I created is to discover. And I really love that become open, like it's an O, because I feel like the O is like, it's infinite, it's ever, it's forever. Discover, I just love how the frequency of D, like discover, it's a deepening. It's a deepening of who we are. Discover what's going on. Discover what's available on this earth, on this planet. Like it's a presence, it's a grounding. It's a masculine, where the opening is like the feminine, and feminine and masculine does not mean man or woman. Everyone, it's just energy. I can be both. Everyone here can be both, but discover is like a very grounded masculine. Here we go. So becoming open is important. You're like the canvas. You're here, you're ready, you're available, whatever. I'm ready to go. Discover, and the comment that was said here that really allowed me to look at life just so much differently. Is that I had someone at my high school. I was walking down the hallway, went to go put something in my locker. It was like a rectangle blue locker. And this guy said, "Did your Black boyfriend try to cut you?" Because I was dating an African-American at the time. And again, I had never heard of this. Like I did not grow up in a family that, I don't know. I never even knew really there was racial, I guess I knew that maybe there were issues, but I wasn't taught to like think of these things. Like I never really thought there was this type of, I just thought everyone had an opportunity to do their best in life. And so I was like, what? Like it was so beyond my comprehension. And I again became more aware of social injustices at this point, and I became really angry at it, right? I was like, what? Like this is so confusing. And so what I want to share, fast forward again, I think this would have been 4 years. I was in college. I lived in South Africa for a month. I went up from Johannesburg, down to up north down to Johannesburg. I forget what the one is, but anyway, it was incredible. But when I went, it was like a week after Nelson Mandela died. So the whole country was like basically having a whole a celebration, a whole thing with Nelson Mandela passing. And I was at this, we got this opportunity to stay with this tribe. And the guy, the tribe we were at, he had 3 wives, and it was a beautiful experience. But one of the wives was cooking us dinner, and it was so amazing. And she sat at our table, and she was there with apartheid. So she'd seen actually white people kill her family. And she was telling us the story at dinner, and she saw them get like drug out of her house as a child, and just this whole thing. And I was just like, wow. And I was like, thank you just so much for cooking for us. And thank you so much for sharing. Like it was almost this, it was like I can't really describe it, besides like, I just remember this woman's rice was so good. And she's like sitting like right here next to me. It wasn't like across, like she was sitting right here next to me, and so calm, so just present, so surrendered. And she said to me, which I thought was so profound in this moment, is she said, I said, how could you be sitting here and cooking for us? Like, we're Americans, and this, like, we have racial issues that, they're going on, but it's not like people were just massively killed in this lifetime. I mean, I'm sure they are, but not as in a public state as it was in South Africa. And I said, that, and she just said, Nelson Mandela, she looked at me straight in my eyes and said, Nelson Mandela taught me that we always have to love. We must love, or it's going to harbor inside of us. And that forgiveness can't harbor, like that can't happen. So I had to do that. I had no option. And her energy that came through her in her eyes, it wasn't like this was something she was just saying. You felt it. You knew this is what she believed, what she meant, and she knew there was no other option. And I thought it was just such a powerful experience for me. And it reminded me of this comment that happened and this anger I was carrying around with race. And I thought, wow, I'll never quite understand that, right? That hasn't been my life experience. So I can't be in that body to understand that. But I can definitely see that the only option is forgiveness. And I had to discover in this life that we will always see what we want to see in the world. We will always see what we want to see. So if you want to see anger and hate and killing and injustice, you will see that. If you want to see people that are together doing amazing things in the world, rising, being impactful, empowering, you will see that. And even further than that, I didn't know about this in this book. This is more of a breakthrough in the last 10 years, but obviously this book was written in the last 5 years, but something called mirror neurons, MIRROR neurons. Many of you may have heard me talk about this before. I'll write it in here, but you can look this up after. Mirror neurons. And so what a mirror neuron is in neuroscience is that it's basically whatever you're choosing to see. So if I'm looking at Dawn right now and I go, God, Dawn's just so annoying, right? Then I don't think that, Dawn. I don't think that actually about you. But if I was to say that, if I actually believe that, what happens the moment I say that, because it's a voice, a neurological response happens from my biology that chemically allows me to feel that way, that I'm annoying, that I'm whatever, that I'm angry. So if I go, he's so angry, he's so this, and I just get into that, there's a neurological reaction already associated with what I'm seeing to cause that biological reaction to come up in me. And so what you want to discover in the world, what you say, what you see, how you see it, is going to cause a mirror neurological reaction so that you see exactly what you're seeing in someone. Whatever you're like, if I go, oh my God, the flowers are so pretty, right? I can't even say like, the flowers are so ugly. Like I can't, even if I try, like the flowers are so pretty. The flowers are so ugly. Like I literally, like the ugly, the ugh that goes down, and it changes the way your body looks. Like, even if you say something like, I'm so happy, right? Like you can tell, where I'm like, I'm so sad. Like I don't get as bubbly. It's like literally, even if I tried, like, oh my God, da, da, da. Where if I'm like, oh, okay, that's great, whatever. Like you can see my more serious, like neurologically, your body is having a reaction to whatever you're saying. And so discovering this world is so important, because you will absolutely discover whatever it is you want to see. And from that discovery of what you're seeing, your body has a reaction to align you to that, whether you like it or not. So be very, in this journey, become a great observer. And this is not in my book, but this will be like the fourth book that I'm writing. But anyway, when you become the discovering of your life, become really good at observing others and become really great at observing yourself. What are they communicating? And often realize that whatever they're seeing is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. And for you, begin to navigate the conversation. So if someone goes, example, I hear a lot, people are like, oh, LA people are so superficial, or LA people are, I'm like, interesting. I've experienced such a different reality. I've lived here 2 years. I think it's one of the most creative places in the world. I meet so many amazing entrepreneurs and people in the same industry as me. Like I love it. And it's a beautiful place. But the moment they're saying that, right, what they're really saying is, I have a reality where I'm around these types of people, but I'm going to place it on a blame in every other state, every other country. And I'll say this, I can do this because when I moved from America, I was in Michigan, Arizona, Houston, Baltimore with the $23 billion company that I worked for as a sales engineer covering multi-million-dollar territories. I was like, I want to change my life. Let me get up and move across the world to New Zealand, which I did. And when I'm in New Zealand, I got to a $400 million company. And this is when I learned you can pick up and move somewhere and put yourself in the same environment and you will discover the same results. There's not going to be a difference in this. And so you want to realize that you will always discover what you see. And I loved New Zealand, right? But I was putting myself in a corporate job. I was going to keep finding the same issues because that was not the environment for me. So you have to look at whatever you're discovering. It is because you're in an environment, or you're choosing an environment allowing you to see that. And so what do you need to shift to discover different things? And in people who are sharing this around you as the leader, as the facilitator, how do you begin to put the power back into them so they can feel like they have an empowered choice? Let me repeat that. They feel like they have an empowered choice to discover a different reality. That's the difference between you and then becoming the leader. So let me know if that makes sense, or there's ever, or let me see here. Survivalist and defense mechanisms get triggered for a reason. Absolutely. And I think too, from a standpoint of when you first begin this work, right? Like I was in survival at one point, I was in defense, and I guess I can still be defensive in a little ways when it comes to things. I have some maybe unhealed insecurities, like we all do that. If someone really were to attack that, I'd probably go a little bit in, but I've gotten a lot better. And I think I believe, or I feel, or I've seen that the commitment to this work is what gets you more into a thriver and activated state instead of a survivalist and defensive state. Like it gets you into a thriving, activated, excited state where the conversation isn't so much, well, they are wrong and this is that and da da da. It's more of like, wow, that's a really interesting thought. I love that. Let me learn more. And then pinning it back so people can come to their own discovery. And that's the point, right, of being a lover. That's the point of being a leader of love, a leader of whatever, is to give that empowerment and activation to others so they see that there's nothing to survive from, there's nothing to defend. You're just here to thrive. The body, the biology is here. Like the human body is incredible. If you do study biology, I mean, it is here to literally make you flourish, like in so many ways. Like it will do whatever it can, in a lot of ways. And so I love that you said that. And I think some expanded words, which is my fourth book, Expanded Liberation, goes into, instead of these languages like survival, defend, triggered, it'd be like thriving, receptive, and activated. How does one filter some of the negatives you see around you? Such a good question. We actually had a call before this on my 6-week course, some of us here, that's called How to Become Sexy, Successful, and Confident. We were talking about identity and we were talking about filtering processes. So I I think you have to be intentional. That's a very big word. You have to be mindful. What environment am I going into, right? So like today, right, I'm being a lot more giving, offering than I would just on a regular social media live, right? I'm going into some very deeper topics, because if this was just on a regular Facebook Live or LinkedIn or YouTube, sure, you might get some, but it's not as an intimate setting, right? So there's a little bit of a different space right there. So the filtering would be, well, someone's not going to give me their email. Someone's not going to buy the book. Someone's not going to send me a picture of them buying the book. Like, right. If that's what they believe, that's just not going to happen. Right. So that's like one way I'm just talking about filtering. But as far as like team members or friendships, it can go in many different ways, right? Of clients, you want to think, if this is who I am, this is the person I'm aligning to be. I'm aligning to be present, to be practical, to be loving, abundant, a leader, whatever that is in your own right, right? If these are the things I'm aligning to, you want to get specific. Who is it I want to be around, right? So for me, in my business, right, I have an ideal client. My ideal client has a name, and that name of that person, but it's like a made up identity that I've made, and I know them very well. And so now when I say, I'm like, okay, I'm calling in 5 Kevins. So that's his name, Kevin's, or Sarah's. I can say I have 2 of them, different ones, but like Kevin, Sarah's, Leela's, whatever. I've made this identity, and I'll say, I'm calling them in, and I get very specific. Like, and this is what I want to say. This is what I want to do. And sometimes it'll be through prayer. It could be through a mantra. It could just be a regular conversation. But when I'm specific about creating like that identity of who I want to act with, and I can just say it as part of my being, then it naturally just happens. Whereas you're just wandering through life in your field, right? You still want to be open, but your field's so open to how close people are to you. It kind of be like, oh, this is annoying. This is not right. This is whatever. The more specific I got about who I'm becoming, the more specific I got with who I want around me, that thing just naturally happened, right? Because neurologically, I'm focused on that. I'm only attracting that. I'm open still, I might see someone annoying, whatever. And I might say something, but they're not really going to get that close to me, because my radiance, who I am is there's no equalizer, stabilizer for them to even come in. Like an example to make this practical. So last year for my mom's 65th birthday, I think it was. So we went to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, which is like, I'm like, no one's there. It's like super like hard to get to, 5 or 6 hour drive. Beautiful though, gorgeous, super much better than the South. So we're there, and you had to like make reservations for the dinner, and with COVID and everything. And so anyway, this woman comes up and she's like, well, we asked for it and we're obviously never going to get it. And then I was like, why don't you just manifest? Maybe someone didn't show up, or they fell asleep under the stars, or they're camping or whatever, like you literally are creating your reality. And I stopped and said this to her. She's like, you're so positive. I guess you're so right. But she had that attitude, right? Not a bad way. She obviously wouldn't be a client of mine. She would never follow me on social media, right? Or she would never do something. But that's a moment where like, she's not even allowed really into my field, because I've created such an infrastructure where it almost be like I'm talking Chinese to her in a way, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I've kind of filtered it out. Another way, in like a nice way, if people want to have get close to me, or they want to do things like, and they want to become a private client, right? I don't do phone calls. I only do all my social media, or like private email or private messages. So I don't do that. And if you want a phone call, then we're just not aligned. Like if you need that trust, like you haven't done the homework, you haven't become self-empowered on who I am or what I'm teaching, that's on you. I'm not here to force you into something or have that. That just doesn't feel good for me. I have an application process, right? So what is it I want to know about you? I'm curious. What do you want to do with this life? Can I even help you? Like, is that something that even works? What's your limiting beliefs? Like, and you have these questions where you begin to filter. Obviously I've done this, quite a few years, but when I started, right, I would change the questions. Sometimes I'd be like, oh, okay, let me ask this. Or I had like 2 call links when I was doing phone calls, and I'd have different questions and see what I like better, what worked better. And that's like, it supported me a lot. Now we kind of talked about this on the call earlier. When I see something, I have a feeling more or less pretty frequently, like I can just think that's not going to work, or that's not happening. So it's much easier for me to get out. But like an SEO people I just hired, right? Like a bunch of SEO people wanted my business. I just started this, I don't know, end of last year, I hired that. So all these people were mailing me, and I said, I don't want to get on the phone with you. If you can sell me your business through email, I'll be your client. And one of them, there was only one out of like 15 of them. Only one of them was willing to do that. And I was like, they just got my business. So that's like another way. That's not necessarily negative, but it's just knowing what you want, knowing your lover, knowing you're intoxicated, self-mastery, not going to feel bad or guilty about it. And I'm just going to just discover this is who I am. And we'll get to the other parts, but that would be step 3, explore, discover, then explore it in the ways of communication. So that's what I'd say. Wherever I go, there I am. Yes, I really like that a lot. And I think that it's also what's powerful is wherever I go, there I am. It's the other thing that I like about this too. And I mean, this is why I like technology as well. And I think each of us in our own industry, I know a few of you very well, but what your respective places is, I think that when you make yourself accessible, when you become open and you open yourself like butterfly wings, right? Like whether I'm on, I don't know, 20 something different social media platforms, right? I'm not actively posting or doing things, but on all of those every day. But I've built a wing to be open to the work. I built a wing to let the love come through me. I became that open. I discovered the ways that I liked sharing. I discovered the truth of who I was. I discovered that I'm not going to be a scientist. You know, that's not my role. I'm not going to be a medical. There are people that are, and we need them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just not me. That's just not my truth. But that's why each person's truth is so crucial and so important, because we can't do it alone. So I love what you said of wherever I go, there I am, is because it is just like that I am, that I am, that I am, like knowing it and being so solid in that core. Radiance. Yes, I love that word too for me. Radiance. So okay, step number 3 is explore. So that's the third one, exploring. And I love this because explore, it's an E. So we had open, discover, you can feel explore is a very neutral word. It's not really masculine or balanced, or masculine or feminine. It's a very balanced word. I am exploring. I am explored. I am explorer. Like you can make it these different energies, which I find so powerful. And I chose this word explore because I really believe after you become open, after you begin to discover, there's so many different ways to do life, to be life, just to do it all. There's so many ways for it that you just go explore. And this book, when I wrote it, right, I moved across the world to New Zealand by myself. There was no one else with me. I'd never been there. After that, I traveled to 13 countries on my own, my first year in business, and grew my business that way. Like it was insane, but explore was just this thing that once you have this opening, discovering it, there's something more, you're going to go explore it. You're going to go find it. And exploring is the best education, because exploring gives you experiences. And when you have experiences, you can talk on them and you can relate to people and truly, deeply, meaningfully connect. And there is nothing that can replace it. I don't care how brave an education, how smart you are. I don't care what it is. When you have experiences, you have true connectivity, success, and opportunity to build relationship capital. And there's nothing in the world like relationship capital. And that only happens the deeper you can connect. Let me give you an example. I was at this event, and then I'll get into, I didn't know I was going to do this, but this is why talks with me go kind of all over. But anyway, I was at this event, and there was a venture capital friend of mine. And he's pretty big venture capitalist in America. And we go out to eat one day, and he invites me to his event. And I'm thinking, what do I have to learn at a venture capitalist event? You know, like I'm still traveling the world, like whatever. But I'm like, okay, he wants me to go, so I'll go. So I go to the event, right? And there's this guy there. And this was probably, I mean, this guy I think is one of the top 20 venture capitalists in America. I mean, way up there. I mean, you can find him everywhere. He's behind many companies that have started at nothing and are now publicly traded. So anyway, I'm like sitting there, and he comes up by me afterwards, and I'm like, oh shit. I don't really get nervous that much, but this was like someone that's, you know, totally outside of my range. I'm talking about love. This guy is like a high end, massive things that I don't understand, you know? So I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, he starts talking that he traveled with his wife and that they like snorkeling. So he comes over, and I said, oh, have you ever been to Vanuatu? He said, no, where is that? I said, it's kind of like by Fiji, a little bit to the west. And he said, oh my God, no. I said, it's like the clearest blue water. It's not a tourist attraction yet, but you've got to go in the next like 5 years, because then it's going to be massive for like snorkeling and all the things he was talking about. He's like, oh my God. And he's like, what do you do? And so I started telling him, and he's like, oh my God. He's like, I have people I need to introduce you to. He sent out 10 personal private messages on his Facebook to people in his community, and they all became clients. And some of them are still clients, like on and off. And what I'm saying to you is that explore it. You seemingly would have nothing in common with this guy, nothing. But I had that experience because I traveled the world. And I'm not saying you have to travel the world, but I'm just saying, don't ever second guess what an experience or what an exploration can guide you in a connection. And he still likes my stuff. Like, it's so funny. Like, he'll still message me like, there she goes. Like, he's so funny. Like and I'm like, this guy is how busy, like, you know, but you know, and something like that, like, yeah, he may never become a client or a thing. I don't care. But just knowing that if I ever got into that type of industry or whatever, that I could call him or just message him. And obviously he can with anything, like that's so powerful. And that's the power of exploring. And so the third comment that I talk about in my book is that I was actually at a party. It was at Michigan State in Cedar Village, if those of you have been to that, but it's like right by the campus. It's like the craziest place, like living place. And so anyway, there's a DJ, and this guy came up to me, and he was like, "What's on your neck?" I was like, nothing. Like, I didn't know what to say. I just didn't respond really. And he said, "Did some guy try to choke you out during sex?" That was my face. Like, literally, I was like, and I'm like partially intoxicated and partially like, oh my God, what just happened? I froze, which is a trauma response. And I think I just sat there, and then I ran out of the party. I like 5 minutes later crying. I ran into an Uber or a cab, and they took me home. And I remember I was just, I mean, my friends were shocked that saw it. Like, no one knew what to say. I mean, everyone was just like, what? Like, everyone was like, oh my God. So my friends were texting me. I didn't respond to the next day. And I remember this is really when I started to feel alone. I really felt like the understanding of what it meant to feel alone in the world, because I had seen a few of my friends die from cancer already. You know, I obviously heard some people say things to me already, but this was a little intense for me. Like, this was a little beyond. And it really let me reflect on the moment that I was at the doctor's office, and there was a father, and the father yelled at his wife saying, "The only reason that we cannot pay for our daughter's treatment is because you're a stay-at-home mom." And somehow this thing of a guy choking me during sex and the stay-at-home mom comment linked together in my mind to cause a loneliness, to cause a feeling of what women must, men and women, to be fair, I shouldn't say, but at that time, women, but I've expanded men and women now, but in that time, what it must felt like for women to go through something like this and feel like their beauty is being lost. And for men, it could obviously be their looks too, or their workout, their health. You know, it's a little different. I don't know if men are like, I'm beautiful, but you know, I'm sure men have their own, you know, thing of that. But I started to really feel this thing of loneliness, and I could get how people could function in the world and could feel like no one understood them, or could feel like that they're isolated. And from this, how anger could arise. And so what I realized from this comment, right, or what arose in me, is back to the discover section, which is people will only discover what they want to see in the world, right? And so this man who had the courage to say such a great thing to me, or a lovely thing to me, right? How much pain must he have been suffering in to even have the courage to focus on something like that? Maybe he was suffering from a sex addiction, or was abused when he was younger. Who has any idea? But I realized from this discovery, right? You can only discover what you want to see. And he wanted to see that on my neck, because by seeing that and saying that, it gave him an opportunity to not feel alone. It gave him an opportunity to feel like someone else has experienced what I've experienced. Came out the wrong way. You know, it's not how it was worded. But that's really at the core of what we're all trying to do, is connect. And you know, I know I share a lot of my life, but there's definitely things I've done where I've messed up, and I wanted to connect on something, or wanted to connect and be somewhere in my life, like be ahead of the curve or be an overachiever. And I didn't achieve this thing yet, or I was at the table and I wasn't where everyone else was, or I didn't have certain things, you know. And I in the past, I've gotten better, but I will say things sometimes to feel like I can connect in a room I don't feel connected to. And I realized this is what this man was doing. And so as our jobs, our intended roles as intoxicators, I would say, is to realize that when people say things, it's never to hurt you. It's never to lash out at you. It's really they're trying to connect. They're trying to relate, and they're doing it the best way they know how, because we are living in a world that has subconsciously taught us to connect on fear more than on love. And so obviously I'm not saying in that moment, be best friends or give that person a hug. Obviously I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying to be mindful of the things that have happened in your past, because I held on to this comment, you guys, for years. For years, I was angry at men. For years, I was frustrated. For years, I felt like, am I ever going to be pretty? Is anyone ever going to see me? I mean, for years and years and years, I really suffered with this with men. And I really made dating like a hobby in a way. And, you know, it was fun, but it was never sustainable, really. And there's a few like deep, amazing connections that I've built and had, but it was just so much anger and very short-sighted. So what I want you to see in this exploring stage is that these memories that you might be holding on to yourself, these negative things that people have said to you, of maybe you're stupid or you're annoying or you're non-social, or you're not good at whatever it is, just to realize that they said that out of place of connection, because they actually did want to connect with you, but they found a way to put you down because they didn't want to connect on that. They wanted to pretend their desire, their truth wasn't their truth, so that they could be part of the cool club, or they could be part of whatever. They wanted to seem that way because it's much easier to put the facade on than to pretend like, actually, I like technology too. Actually, I like coding too. Or, wow, did that happen? Because I was abused too as a child, or even though it's not what happened. The scar is not what represented that, but that's much easier to say than to say the truth, which people may not have faced because it's subconsciously buried deep within the memory of them, and they're operating out of that place. So when you go into exploring, all I'm sharing is that realize that the connection on depth, on truth, on whatever is much more powerful. Like, even I was just actually staying at a guest house. It was this beautiful guest house that I was staying at, and it was like literally in the middle of nature. It was gorgeous. And I was leaving, and the woman, as I was leaving, she's like, I have to come and talk to you. And she was telling me she had childhood trauma and there was all this stuff. And so I sent her my book, or I had my book. I gave her my third book, right out of my bag, and was like, read it and let me know how it goes. But she connected on trauma. She didn't come up to me and say, what are your books about? You're weird. Or what are you reading? She so vulnerably became open to discover and explore a connection, which is what we're asking for with love. So let me just read that. Let me know if that makes sense. 1 second. Yes, ready, explore. Fatima, I love you. Okay. Tom, explore and be spontaneous. Yes. Be alone, but not feel alone. Yes. If you guys weren't on my free training on Tuesday and on Saturday last week, it was totally free. It's called How to Activate Your Alien Magic Vibes. We talk about loneliness. It was a huge topic we talked about. One thing we said is, if you're, you like to be alone, if you're like me, or you're like a lot of us here, or which you probably are, you like to be alone, but you hate to feel alone. And I go deep into that concept on that training. So just email me or message me. I'll get you the training so you can listen to it. It was phenomenal. How do you deal with people with anger issues and too much ego? So that would be like one of those filters, right? If someone had a lot of anger or ego, I personally wouldn't deal with them, right? Like, it wouldn't be like, that would be a filter process that I'd see pretty early on. Like, ooh, they have some ego. I'm going to remove myself, or I'm going to get away from that. That would be, I wouldn't engage with someone because they're not open, right? There's not a willingness. It's almost like if you're trying to have a conversation, again, and this is not political, I'm just saying this in a way that if you're trying to have a conversation with someone about Eastern philosophies and healing versus Western medicine, you can have an amazing holistic conversation, which you really need both. It's not like one's bad or one's good. You can have an incredible dialogue where things could get pulled out and be recorded from both for people to find their own, right? But if someone's like, this is the way, this is like, you can't have, they're not open. There's not even a conversation to begin. So thank you for showing me early on you're angry and you're egotistical. Like, I wouldn't say this to them, but in my head, I'm thinking this. Thank you so much. I send you love, and I pray that you become open, and I'll see you soon. And I just move about my way. I don't expenditure that energy on someone who's not ready. And that's not to be mean. And I think with my second book, The Refugees, again, this is a way, not a bad way. Again, you could say this with homelessness, with cancer. I mean, you could say it with a million things, right? Some people, they're going to want to be homeless. That's not a bad thing. If once you're homeless, to be honest, I don't know if I was homeless and I'm used to being out in the open ground and land. If you try to put me in a house, I'd probably feel like solitary confinement. Like, what am I, a cage? I would feel weird. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong or any of this. I'm just giving perspective on, am I going to try to change someone who believes the world's their home when they want to sleep on the grass to go live in a house? Probably not, if that's not what they want. There's nothing you can really do, so I'm not going to do that. But there's enough people that are open, that are discovering, that are exploring, that you can go and do that magnetizes to you when you stand in that truth, when you stand in your grounding, whatever that grounding is, if it's politics, if it's not having plastic water bottles, if it's journals, if it's writing, if it's computer manufacturing, whatever that it is, right? Each of us have our own truth. And I'll even share this. Like, I had a powerful, what's this called? It's a powerful series. It's called The Awakening. It's a 3-part series that I had on it. And the live training webinar I did, it was in 2020, maybe July, August, 2020. And let me tell you, that webinar, I cannot believe, I've told everyone, we had people that were hardcore Trump supporters, hardcore Biden supporters, people that were hardcore COVID people, people that were hardcore conspiracy people. I mean, that was the craziest webinar I've ever heard. And I'm telling you, everyone was so respectful. It was insane. Like, I got off that thing and I was like, I can't believe, I almost looked at, I can't believe I just did that. Like, I was like, that was the craziest experience I've ever had. But I opened it up by saying, I want everyone to know here, I want everyone to understand that everyone here is going to have their own truth. But just because their truth is different doesn't mean their truth is wrong, because we each have a soul mission. We each have a soul contract. We each were here for a specific meaning, right? And we each in our role, while we were here incarnated, have that particular arena to awaken. Doesn't make anyone right or wrong. That was just what was chosen. So let's not argue about it. And let's see, we're all in the same mission, in our right vehicle, in our right avenue. And let's have that acceptance. And everyone was like, you are so right. And I got it. And I was like, that's amazing. Now, obviously, if I was in a room of 1,000 people that weren't specifically from my community or the community I built, hell no, obviously I would never do that. That's, you know, that's again, being mindful of what was cultivated and that filtering system. So that's what I'd say with that. But obviously, again, if it's, I mean, yeah, I've never had an angry client. I've never, like, I mean, really angry or things. And I think I had one client, he was an engineer. He was kind of a little bit of ego. But we just didn't work together after. He was just like, yeah, you're not my thing. I was like, okay, great. But I've really cultivated, because I'm so true to me, it would repulse the wrong people. Like, he'd be like, she just doesn't resonate. Next. So the deeper you're committed to that, the more it's like a magnet in a way. Like, the more that you are that, they have to repulse. It's like, it just doesn't even work. Intellectual rejection. That's a big one. You know, I've never thought of that before, but I think exploring, right, in your exploring stage, intellectual rejection will happen right when you come from ego, when it's, this is the right way. This is the way. You have to understand this about abortion or marriage or monogamy or non-monogamy or I don't know, anything, like any of those things I could go on, right? And if you're like, this is the only way, this is the way, right? Then it doesn't matter how smart you are, you're gonna experience that, because you're coming from such a place where it's not resignatable. Like, no, people can't even hear you because you're already so certain. So I'll give you an example on this. So Elon Musk just said something profound, I thought, and the way he shared it was profound. He said, you know, I think in this life, we are going to have a universal supplemental income, because the way that we're going, people aren't going to want to learn technology or not going to choose to learn that, or the space revolution. It's just not going to be something that some people will learn and some will not. So we're going to need this because of how AI is going to take over. And he said, now, let me be clear. I'm not saying I wish for this to happen. I'm just projecting what I'm looking at is going to happen. And I thought that was profound, right? Because even if you don't agree with that, even if you're like, that's a part of the company, you're like, well, wow, it's not like he's wishing that, you know, he's just saying what he sees from data. And he has a right to do that. Now, if he was to come out and say, this is what will happen, these people should not get this much money, screw these people who aren't willing to learn, he didn't say anything like that. He could have, right? But he didn't. And I think, you know, even Jeff Bezos said something, he was in India, and he said something very profound. He said, I suspect that the 21st century, sorry, because whatever century we're in right now, 21st or 20th, sorry, get them all, whatever century it is, that he said, this is going to be the India century. This is going to be the century where India really takes hold of the global economy, which in a way we need India too. So in a way, like, I'm grateful he said that in that prediction. Right now, he's not saying it in a way that's egotistical. He's not saying bash America, bash Canada, bashing Africa. He's not saying that. He's just looking at what the technology is, looking at trade agreements. I mean, he gave a bunch of reasons, right? Just looking at data and saying perspective. You can't reject something like that from just an observation. You can have a different perspective. You can think something different, but you can't reject that. You can only reject something that's not open, that's only closed-sided. And that's the whole point, is we're in a constant state of openness, right? Like the flower can't be rejected by the bee just decided not to land there. You know, it's always open, it's always there. I've noticed a pattern where I've magnetized people good and ill. Well, you want to be mindful, right? And this is, I think, back to one of the questions that have been asked, like, when you become certain, we kind of went over, this is so funny. We went over this in the 6-week program I'm running right now, that we had the call before this, a few of you were on, but how to become sexy, successful, and confident, week 5, we talked about identity, right? And if you guys want that, you can message me. I'll give you the link to join it. But we that identity piece is so big, because once you're certain in that identity, like it would be so, I don't want to say impossible because nothing's impossible, but it would be so wildly unobtainable in my life now for me to receive like an Uber driver that's in a bad vibration, or even like my real estate person I just met a couple weeks ago, like they're into manifestation. Tell me about The Secret. They already bought my books. Like all my Uber drivers, like, oh my God, tell me more. Like the place I was staying at in the guest house, like that person down the street noticed, like I was a writer and wanted to know about my book and sharing about her trauma. Like it would be so wildly out of the norm, a massive outlier for me not to meet random people that are in alignment with what I'm sharing or what I'm doing. Like it's just so beyond, because I'm so strong in that identity of me. And so if you're meeting people, right, that are negative or not there, I would just go, okay, where do you either allow, and not in a bad way, where do you allow that, or what part of you is attracted to that? And I think that was hard for me because I was attracted, in a way, after these men said bad things to me. I was like, screw men, like, but so in a way, right, I was discovering men who were going to manifest what I didn't want, because I was so angry at men from these comments that I was holding on to from past memories. So if you have friendships or you're attracting people, are like, oh, strangers are this, or they're never going to understand me, or I don't know, everything under the sun, right? Like even like I'm not shy about it, but I'm known to be a little bit more like on a high maintenance side, or I can be high maintenance, like not in a rude way, but I have some tendencies that are more like, okay, like whatever. It's never rude. Like I said, it's funny in a lot of ways, but like one example of this would just be like, so, right, I have a luggage that I travel with, one of my luggage pieces, and it has my sound bowls in it. It has my podcast microphone, and it has like another heavy piece of equipment that I need, right? So I put it in there, right? And I've had that, I don't know, the last few months I've traveled on 8 or 9 different flights. And I think I've had a few rental cars that I've done stuff with. It has never once been an issue where I've had to figure out how that heavy suitcase is going to get up into the thing, how it's going to get down, and who's lifting it in the car. I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing. I'm just saying, right, I've created such a standard where people are like, do you need help? Oh my God, that looks like a lot. Not that I'm saying it wouldn't be okay if I had to do it. I'm sure it would be fine. I'd figure it out. I'm happy to do it. But it's so out of the realm because I'm in such an alignment that people want to come talk to me. Like they're finding an excuse to talk and see, because I'm just so happy. And she has these bright colors, and what's going on with her nails, and her outfit is whatever. Like I just got, like, that's what's happening. And subconsciously they're trying to connect. Now I'm not doing it for that I need help or whatever. That's just the life I've cultivated, right? And so if you're attracting ill people, you want to look, it's the toxic part. What in you is attracted to that? And I think the masculine, I'm not going to just say men, I think, and I'll put the women, I'll say the feminine part, the masculine, right, in this huge transition likes to provide. The masculine wants to feel needed, but in a lot of ways, the masculine feeling needed has been toxic. And the feminine, right, wants to control, wants to be like, I need this, I do this, da, da, da. And this can be man or woman. So again, I'm putting these two energies, but it can be either gender. But when you have that, right, if you're attracting ill, there's some part of you that wants to feel like you can provide or transform the ill into good. And that's not your responsibility to transform, provide for the ill. It's for you to be so solid and good on your own that you are abundant, whatever, and the good is attracted to you. So that providing comes from the providing comes only to good people in a way. I think a big thing with me, right, it was like an overgiver, or I wanted to be like, everyone makes sure they feel loved and do whatever. And so I would like overexhaust myself, right? But I was attracted to that because I felt needed. I felt like people wanted me to love them. I felt whatever. And I had to acknowledge that. It's okay to say no. It's okay to have a small circle. It's okay to be alone. I just don't need to feel alone. And that's exploring. This whole thing is exploring. I explored all these experiences in my life that have allowed me to have this enlightenment in a way, and allowed me to see, wow, that seems angry. I'm a lot of angry people, a lot of ego people, a lot of people who are getting broken up, a lot of whatever. I had to notice this and then create new standards, or a lot of ways create different offerings in my business to help people. Like maybe all these people are clients that I need to create something for in their market research, whatever that it is. Oh God, I was with someone like that. If I wasn't solving a problem the way she thought it would be solved, she thought the problem wasn't being solved. Yeah. And worse, she thought my life was nothing but problems to be fixed. Exactly. And I think the thing that that I love that you shared there, Brian, is I think that the masculine, men or women, right? I'm just saying, I think the masculine is going through that stage where it's almost like the mother, like the woman, because she was at the home for so long, it's almost like she wanted to mother the feminine one to mother everyone, because the only option was to kind of stay at home for ancestors and whatever that is. So it's like, let me also mother these masculine problems out of this thing, and let me tell them exactly how to do it, instead of it being like a partner. And it created this weird ego power trip, because one was a provider and one was emotional. Like, it was a really weird thing in a way. So that you saw that. And yes, toxic Dawn. I was a codependent in a marriage. Yeah. And we've all been codependent, and we all have had codependent tendencies and narcissistic tendencies. So I'm saying that because we're on the same scale based on my third book. So anyway, so that's that one. So, and the fourth one that we have is love. So when I talk about love, obviously I don't think I need to say what it is. It's a feeling, it's a vibration, it's a frequency that we all are. I am love, I am beauty, I am abundant, I am excited, whatever that it is. And this last comment that really changed my life, and it was powerful, is I was out, and this was at a different party with my friend Scott. Actually, I forgot about Scott. But Scott was someone he was one of those guys who was just so smart, but in college, he kind of really let drugs get the best of him. Well, I'm at a party with him, and this guy comes up to me literally out of nowhere, and he just goes, "Did you try to kill yourself?" And it was crazy. Scott, who was on drugs at that, or whatever it was at that moment, flipped out on this guy. I mean, I'd never seen something like this. I mean, went psych. I mean, just went ape. Like, who do you think you are to talk to? Like, I mean, just who, like a woman like that? Like, are you crazy and out of your mind? Like, Scott just went nuts. And I just was like, oh my God. And so I was so insecure, because this was very shortly after this whole choking of sex happened. So now I'm like, I need to wear turtlenecks everywhere. This is a mess. Like, oh my God, I'm so insecure. What's going on? Right. This was being reflected to me everywhere. It felt like everywhere I went, I was like, what's going on? Like, oh my God. So shortly after, which I talked about in the first step, shortly after this comment, I find out that this guy commits suicide. It's almost like I feel like this comment was said and this guy committed suicide, and like wrote the completion of this book from the first step, Become Open. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is crazy. And what I realized, not the guy who said it to me, but the guy from the first, the Become Open, I was like, wow, what if that guy again was asking me if I tried to kill myself because he was actually having suicidal thoughts and he wanted to have a connection. And I paused. I remember I was like, oh my God. And I texted Scott like 5 days later, maybe 10 days, 5 or 10 days. I said, hey, who was that guy? Do you know him? And he's like, yeah, he's my friend. I'm like, can you give me his number? So I text the guy and I say, hey, I'm the girl the other night. I don't know if you remember. I just want to know, are you okay? Or is there something you want to share? And he said, I'm actually so happy you messaged me. I've been really depressed. And when I was like I was mind floored by me simply texting this guy who asked me if I tried to kill myself, like, are you okay? And he opened into the real, what was happening in his life. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm sitting here, I had to be 19. No, I was 7. Where did I graduate? 16. No, I had to be 16, 17, sorry. 17, 18, 19. I was 19, the first one, 19. I was getting high school and college with them, 19 years old. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, there has to be something to this. Like, this isn't just me anymore. Like, I actually think I get this. I think I actually understand something about humans and about what's going on. Like, I think I really get this. And I started, if you watch some of my other, well, if you watch that free training from last week, but anyway, I started to really go out and I would drink, but it's not like I was this partier. It was like, I would go out and deeply connect with people. It's like, now I went out and I would go out and party and I would like literally find the people and I would go and connect with them and talk to them, have these deep opening conversations. And a lot of those people I still have great relationships with. They buy my books, they comment on my things. They always like my stuff, or they message me secretly. Like, I watch your stuff all the time. And these are people that I had connections with. I mean, it's now what, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it's because of this common understanding of love, this understanding of connection, of that when people are being insane, I mean, in a nice way, they're just saying things that are so far off what the normal, I don't know, like even keeled, balanced person is, right? When that's occurring, it's really because they want to connect and they see you as someone they can connect with. They just don't know how to cognitively word it, because neurologically through mirror neurons, they already have discovered something in you they see in themselves. And now they're asking for a connection, a rope. And so I think it's really important in this movement, in this journey, to realize that everything you do, you as your body, you as your experience, you're offering yourself as a connection to people. And obviously not in, I'm not saying enduring abuse. I'm not saying that or anything like that. I'm just saying in designing your life, being mindful of the design of your life, where you're able to design it where connection is who you are. connection is what people feel safe and present and grounded in when they're around you. And love, as also I didn't say, love is a more also balanced word. You can say it's feminine, but I wouldn't say that. Like, love is balanced. Explore is balance. Discover, masculine. Become open, feminine. You can feel it. It's a different energy when it's running through you, and just how you communicate in your connection, and being mindful of when you go places, how you're saying what words to form a specific energy or connection that's going to be sustainable over a lifetime, to really have the largest peaceful army of love, a life of balance, a life of masculine hustle, going in, providing structure, doing the damn thing that's so exciting, and also one of presence, beauty, surrender, slowness, tenderness, the full spectrum of it, so that you can really, which is step 5, become an intoxicator. Just someone who has taken the time to look within, remove the toxic, and become what's left, your truth. And I kind of started the story this way when I meant to end it, but I'll still bring it up just to say it kind of go that way. But when I really wrote this, I had no idea what I would know now about manifestation and energy and frequencies and attraction and Hertz frequencies, the cosmos, astrology. I mean, I knew nothing about these things, right? I was literally just a girl who wanted to travel the world. And my first year in business, I really wanted to prove that I could build a business where I could see that love would always win. I wanted to know how you could monetize love. And that's almost in a way like a researcher side of me, my PhD. How could you measure love? How could you monetize love to prove that love is greater than fear? Prove that in marketing, prove that in community, prove that in sales. How could you do that? And I didn't know that, right? Again, I didn't cognitively know that. I just wanted to be a girl who traveled the world and knew that love would always win and that connection would always win. And everything I've learned, everything I've created, and all of you who have built things because of what you've learned through me or through what I saw or heard and believed in, I already know that the largest peaceful army of love here is here. Like the fact that there's badges and there's people that have these and that listen to the podcast and come to the retreats. And our next event we have is going to be March 19th in LA. It's to celebrate the podcast. So if you do want to come, but these will all be there at a larger scale. But I never knew that a frequency could connect people globally. I never knew that I could grow a 70,000 person community online in 4 years. I never knew that I could create multiple 6 figures, hundreds of clients, like have my clients make money, have my clients build communities, have my clients come to me about building teams and what they're doing in their industry and who they're meeting and how their love story of a life is unfolding. I could have never imagined that from just one thing. And so what I want to share is that you are already in a movement that is allowing a frequency to come through on this planet that we may not know today or tomorrow the exact ROI, but I can promise you in 4 years of my life that what this book that was just self-published went to publishing January 4th, I couldn't have imagined. And my first mentor, I could tell you this, even the first mentor I hired was $30,000 for 12 months. And I told them about this book. And what she said to me is she said, intoxicator isn't of the highest. You really shouldn't use that in your marketing. Many marketing people said, it has the word toxic in it. You shouldn't use that word. And I'm like, but I really believe in it. This is my mission. This is what I believe. And I didn't really promote this book at all my first year in business because of what that mentor said to me, that you cannot use that word because it's toxic. But what's interesting, right? Her mirror neuron discovered toxicity because she was toxic. It had nothing to do with my movement, my message, but I allowed her to enter into my mind, my state of being, so that I didn't really share everything with this book. I've had it, but really started to last year when I started being more mindful and sharing it and being more inclusive of it. And so I want you to know that what you have inside of you, the thoughts you think when you're alone, the ideas that come to you, they are real, breathing, existing thoughts that create a neurological reaction in you. And they come from somewhere. They come from something higher. They come from something coming through you. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So even if you've passed on after this human body, that energy inside of you, that soul goes somewhere. And Dan Brown is a phenomenal writer. They, in one of his books, actually wrote about this. I forget which one. I can put it in the follow-up if people are interested. But what they did is that they got permission of someone who died to put weights under the bed of someone who died. And what happened when they first died is that it actually got heavier and then it got lighter because the soul dips to then release. And so energy inside of you goes somewhere. The thoughts were always yours or are always there, but it's up to you to be the one to take the action to intoxicate the world with love. And we can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. I know none of you can do it alone. And that's why community is so important. And living this life of being a lover, of being one who believes in magic, really, and not just believes in it, like you are walking magic. And I know that about you if you're here. Like you are someone who is walking magic. You are a mystical person. You are a successful person. You are what the world has called forward. And so know to believe in yourself and trust yourself, even when the world people you've paid money for that are great at something have told you something different. Always trust that part of you that knows the truth because it's there and it's something that's being guided. And I promise you, it has a greater return on investment than any logical book, strategy, whatever it can give you. And that's really what I believe in. And that's why I'm so proud to have each of you here. And I'm so excited for each of your journeys to unfold in different ways. So let me just read these really quick. And then I will open it for a Q&A, but I was going to, sobriety is so important. People have a word of sober. I didn't pick up drink. She loves me. I will stay sober is a valuable word in the conversation, not on a dry drunk. He's so sober and beautiful. Yeah. And I think sobriety is, everyone has their own journey with that, right? Because even though I just wrote this too, like you could drug or alcohols, right? That's not being sober, but toxic, right? Intoxicator. You could be addicted to money. The same chemical reaction of being addicted to a substance, you could have that same chemical addiction to money, that same chemical addiction to a person, that same chemical addiction to working out. I mean, that chemical reaction can happen in many ways. So it's definitely important. I'm not condoning drugs or alcohol, but I'm just saying that can be transferred to many things. Being such a globalist like you, Colleen, you will always have lots to share. Kudos to you. Thank you. Yes. And Jesus turned the tables over the money changers. Yes. Jesus kicking money changer ass. Yes. 12 years in recovery from substance use disorder. That's so incredible, Matthew. And congratulations. I know that's a huge, huge thing. So return on investment for following your intuition. Yes, that is amazing, James. I like that. ROI for following your intuition. And then this will be just the last part that I want to share with you guys, and then we'll just open it for Q&A. But I just want to share it with you guys for those of you who haven't been involved or done it yet. If you really like this virtual book training, you like our call, you really like the book, I have two ways that I would suggest going deeper with this work. So I'll put the links here. But the first one is to do a 6-week program that I've created that goes with this course. And it's with me one-on-one. It's called How to Create Your Fairy Tale Life. And we have 3 live calls. There's 18 workbooks in it. Probably about 50% of you that are on here, not 50, 3 of you on here have gone through it. And one-on-one. It's an incredible experience. Week 1, you receive absolute clarity of why you're here. Like, what is your purpose? We do your branding, your marketing, we release your past, we understand why your story was your story in this life, and we create your offering, your own personal product, service, or membership, so that you have something to offer into the world that you can receive money from. It's really like the start of your consulting, your beginning of your life, your beginning of your lover story. A lot of people who have been through divorce or heartbreak have gone through this too. And we just set it up. It's like really like almost like one-on-one. I guide you through everything in this book and your own life story. So you go with me, and that's $5,555, or there's payment plan. So if you can't make that, no worries. I have a 12-month payment plan that we can do to make it super affordable. But there's 3 calls. You have 24/7 access to me for 6 weeks. I mean, it's phenomenal. And then the other option is if you don't want to do that investment, you actually can do it as a self-study course. It's the same thing. You just don't have me one-on-one with you. So basically you go through, it has 18 video modules, 3 per week, workbooks that are like journals that you go through, that you write out and get your past out, get your present out, get new habits forming. It's really amazing. That's a self-study course. And I think it is $333. So either one of those are great. I highly, highly recommend it. Obviously, I'd love to work with every single one of you and get to know you in your journey and support you. It's one of the best things ever. I'm so proud of that program. We've had over 100 people go through it since I've been in business. And every single person, I've never had one complaint besides one guy in the very beginning who didn't show up to the calls. So I couldn't really do anything. And he was the only one who complained. So those are that. So I'd love to support you guys. And then with that, feel free to take you guys off of off your mute and here. I'd love to have any, whatever it is. Oh no, I'm freezing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now you're back.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Oh my God, sorry. I don't know what happened. Okay, so I don't know. What was the last thing you guys heard?
It was
Can you
right,
hear me again or no?
it was right after
Ah,
talking about the self-study.
go ahead.
Right after you were talking about
Okay, the self-study. So I was just saying, if you have any other questions, the self-study basically is $333. You can go through that. You have lifetime access to both of them. They're amazing. But if there's any questions, I want to make it open live so you guys can take yourself off mute now. Let's have a dialogue. If you guys have, I didn't have champagne, but I have water. We can cheers. Anything that you guys want to share, anything that's alive and present on your heart, I want to make sure you guys feel heard, or just anything with your experience. I'm here and available, and I want to hear from you, what you liked or anything I can do to improve for the future talks that you guys have. I just love connecting. I love being here. So floor is open, guys. Anyone?
I always love a trauma triumph story.
Yeah. And if you haven't read my third book, Matthew, my one on Uncompromised Life, you can get it on Kindle. I'm doing the audiobook right now. That one's specifically a lot more around trauma. The tagline on that is called Overcome Heartbreak and Trauma, Experience the Unexplainable and Truly Fall in Love. This one it obviously deals with trauma, but that one has a lot more targeted around trauma. James? Oh, let's see, there's the thing. Let's see. Yes, I'm glad you could celebrate with me too, Brian. So I'll give it another minute if you guys want to say anything or take it off. And I'll send you the recording. So I'll give you it. It's totally free. So you'll get an email. You guys will have that. But yeah, I'm super excited. I loved all your guys' engagement. It makes me so happy. You guys, it's so great. I love that. And makes me excited. And I'm excited to write more books. My fourth one is almost done, and my poetry book will come out this year. And then my dissertation obviously is also, but that's a little bit of a different read. So I love you guys though. And I'm just so proud of each of you. And I really, really mean it. I really believe it. I believe each of us are reflections of each other. And so just for you guys to be created in my reality and see you guys is just something I'm so proud of. And I'm so proud of each of you, of who you've become and the moments you've chosen and times that no one was watching, because that's allowed each of us to be here and witness each other. And that's the most powerful thing. So, all right. Well, I love you guys and cheers, but I'll see you guys. And please don't be strangers. Reach out whenever. And I'll talk with you all so soon.